Okay, so we're looking at the initial setting up and planning really of the boom extension. So this is the end of the boom which sits inside the two outer pieces. So what I've done so far is scalloped out the middle because I need 100 millimeters of travel from the inner to the outer, so there's a bit of an overlap as well to go with it. I've figured on pushing and pulling this in and out right on the very end. So what I've done is I've drilled and fitted an M4 insert. You can actually push that into the end, and then as an extra precaution I've locked it into position using an E-clip. So that sits nicely in the end, and I'm going to use a 500 RPM output shaft N20 motor, M4 thread. So that will screw in and out of that insert to give us our 100 millimeters of travel. It won't be 100, it'll be just under 100 looking at this scale here, but that should be enough to extend the boom out sufficiently. The boom itself has got a stop end guide on it here, which locates in the left hand side channel, so that in this section here there's a channel that runs all the way to the end, so the little lug on there will end up there, so it's given us a little bit of an overlap for it to hang on to. So the plan is that the motor will push and pull the arm through its travel, so about 100 millimeters thereabouts. So we've got the motor screwed all the way into his absolute minimum, so that's the gap that you've got on the end there, and that's the extent of the screw thread at his absolute minimum. So that would be ready for the two arms, both the inner and outer, to put back together, and that should line up with the hole drilled in the outer arm, which will have some sort of fixing screwed through, so that will anchor the motor, and then the other half will go over the top like that. But before I actually fit this together permanently, I've got to figure a way of having the wiring run down, because there's going to be 7 circuits to connect up through this arm that will zigzag around this screw thread. So I'm thinking about a flat ribbon cable to come down and then forward out past this screw thread and eventually pass out through the bottom of this end, and then it will be fixed here, so as the arm is going in and out, the ribbon cable will unfurl itself and curl itself back up on the retract. So we're moving on to the next part now, which is part of the cable management system, and also part of the cable retract system. So the very latest at the moment is I've cleaned out this channel completely up to this end wall, and I'm going to use that to use as a cable retainer. So I've made this little bracket up, and that actually screws onto, or it slots onto that end wall like so, and then is held in with a screw, a countersunk M1.6 by 10 screw to keep that in place. And it also doubles up with a spring anchor, so there will be an eyelet or an end eye for a spring, which is part to do with the retraction system. I've threaded the cables through the bracket, I guess you'd call it, through there to keep the wires, or to bunch the wires up together ready to turn the corner. So that will be the next in line. So what I've got to do is thread this eyelet up through to the top of the heat shrink tubing. So I've got the motor fixed in position up the top, and I've also got the screw in for the bracket. So that's how the cable will end up being routed. There's also a spring which will be using further down the line, and that has got to hook over that turret on the end. Okay, so I've completed the heat shrink tubing. I've got an insert, so I've just printed that off, and that will actually sit inside and hold those wires into the profiles. We've got 7 wires coming through this bulkhead fitting, and then from there it's separated down each side of the track. So we've got 4 wires coming down on the left, so there's 3 wires coming off the pot and 1 motor wire, and on the right hand side we've got the 2 solenoid wires and the other motor.